This is an FOU Studios podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Geek XP, the show where we get some GXP to level up our knowledge. My name is Peter the Geek. In the room with me today, we have hashtag KillJosh.
That's the name. Please don't actually do it.
We also have Bill Murray.
Yeah, people call me Bill Murray.
That's
Yep.
what she goes by, at least. And today we have a very exciting, very special guest. She has done costume design for all kinds of things. The Rocking Dead, a show called Skin Tight, which I'm sure that the costumes were extremely awesome for that. Much Ado About Nothing, Measure for Measure, Hamlet, Richard III, Macbeth, and she was also a creative associate and dresser to the finalist on Project Runway. Ladies and gentlemen, Chrissie Kahler.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome to the
Hi.
podcast.
Welcome to Geek XP.
You guys are the best. Thanks for having me.
Of
I'm so
course.
excited to be here.
Of course, it's exciting. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Chrissie.
Well, I think I'm the ultimate slasher career as far as the world of theater, film, and television goes. You know, do everything from acting, directing, improv, but really wardrobe as a designer, as a consultant, as a dresser is a big one. Done a lot of dressing, and so that's my career. As far as my placement in the world, I watch too much television. Everything from Dance Moms to Game of Thrones. So that's my spectrum of level of television I watch. And all of it in between.
Hey, I mean, that's a good spectrum to have, in my opinion, I guess. You know, I forgot to mention with some of the accolades, you had the Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week on your resume.
I have done so many seasons of Fashion Week. So many seasons.
Really?
Take me with you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really cool. Yeah, you also have a lot of off-Broadway credits. You have Broadway Cares. Like, you've done a lot of costuming in your day.
Yeah.
So
I have.
that's really cool. It's really interesting. So before we get too far into this discussion, I honestly think it's just about time to geek out. That's right. It's time to geek out. So Chrissie, what are we geeking out about today?
I absolutely would love to discuss something. Let me tell you about my experience with the Game of Season 6 finale.
Okay, this is all right. Let's
ready.
do this.
Are we ready
Let's
to
do
geek
this.
out about
Let's do
this?
this. Let's
This
do
was-
this.
Spoiler warning is active, I guess.
Oh, very active spoilers.
I got prepared. We all know we don't really know what we're going into. We're getting ready for Dany, right, to cross and to get her booty to Westeros with those dragons. And for that entire season, I watched the show with other people, but I've had something going on that night, and I had to go home and watch it by myself. And as I was watching the episode, I realized I wasn't watching character arc as much as I was realizing scene after scene how every single one of the women's costumes was dark and these wonderful like slate grays and blacks. And it all started with Cersei, and she looked like her dad, and it was crazy. And I ended up realizing I had to go back after the episode and rewatch it just for plot points because I was watching the arc of all of the costumes that they were doing. And Michelle Clapton, who is the costume designer, she mentioned this months later at Comic-Con, and I was geeking out, if you will, post-show because people are, texting me and they're going crazy. They're like, what did you think about Tyrion? And what did you think about this? I was like, I know, but did you see Dany's slate gray dress? She's never been in gray before. She's only ever been in blues and whites. And I was like losing my mind. And it was Sansa, actually, that she has always had this light, wonderful, as light as the North can be as far as fabrics go. But she was for the first time in this dark color. And I was like, look at this arc that we have. And I'm getting chills thinking about it now. It was proof that, like, the women have taken over Westeros. It was now, like, the women's game. And I then had to go back and watch it to be like, oh, yeah, now all of that also happened yeah, Arya, but did you see her? And people were laughing because I was blowing up everybody's phone about the costumes, and they're like, right, but Danny's on a boat now. And I'm like, I know.
Did you know?
But did you see that necklace? So that was like my ultimate geek out moment.
I love it.
Yeah, and as a costume designer, that's the best part about it is with characters, the screenwriter and gets to create the arc of the character, and so does the actor get to, make their choices and give the arc. But really, a costume designer also gets to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. You get to watch in so many different facets of whether it's television or film or theater, you can easily show the adjustment that a character really has with what they're wearing. So
I love it. I love it. So, legitimately, why was the change to slate gray such a prominent point of like the power taking over and everything like that too?
Because I think with Danny, it was specific because she knew she was entering the big game, and she was ready to now be a woman of Westeros. Then I forget where she was coming from.
From across the narrow sea.
Thank you, from across the narrow
she was
sea,
in Marine.
where she was. Yeah, she had to be
yeah.
in these light fabrics and these light colors, and she was also younger and trying to find her way. And when they landed in the top of season 7, when they landed on Dragonstone, and you saw Dragonstone, you're like, that was inside of her this whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Like that color, that feeling, that dreariness almost of being, she became a woman in that moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Essos, that's what we were thinking of. Essos.
Essos,
So
thank you.
Essos.
I really like the way you're talking about this because a lot of times people think about the costumes as a way that it kind of like introduces a character very effectively. You can tell by someone wearing a kind of dark and imposing outfit that they're maybe a grim character, or you can see by someone's like color in the fabrics that they're a royal character or something like that. But from the laypersons, that's about as in-depth as we see it.
Oh,
But
definitely.
you see the kind of transitions in the actual character arc represented in their costumes.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? It's wild. Yeah.
It's I mean, I'm all about costumes. I think it's totally fun. But I have to say, I did not realize that part of the reason I started enjoying Sansa towards the end of it was because of her costume. I actually took her seriously. I was like, put down the lemon cakes. And I genuinely was like, wow, Sansa has a part in this show. At first she was so meek, and the costume change really set it out. Now that you pointed that, I'm like, I gotta rewatch that, have that moment, because I feel like I could feel that. It was cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Once you see her in those furs and that great
yeah.
big coat.
Oh my gosh.
She could be a leader.
And the best part about that costume she wore was you could see how fine of a needlepoint artist she is, because you can see the detail of the dire wolf, and it's probably the best representation of her abilities as a needle artist. Arya has needle, and she has her needle, and she is able to show that I am a Stark, and I am the Stark, and I'm the Stark in Winterfell. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody knew about all this Jon stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
No, totally.
But, and the very first time she has that on, she actually introduces that change of color for the women at the end of Battle of the Bastards, because she's wearing it when she's on top of the hill.
Oh.
When Littlefinger shows up with
the entirety of the Reach's army.
and you look at her, and her hair isn't beautifully braided like it was in King's Landing. And that's another thing that Sansa went through. Was I love the beginning of the seasons when Sansa is younger, obviously, but when she's a Stark, so she has all of her her north gear on, if you will, that's very warm. But then Arya, and I forget what season it is, she is mad at Sansa because Sansa's standing with the Lannisters and the Baratheons. Yeah. And she's standing there, and she looks like Cersei. And you're like, what is she doing?
Oh, yeah, you're devastated at that point.
Yeah, she's loving the fact that now she's a woman of King's Landing, because she's going to be the next queen, and she's Joffrey's betrothed. So, she looks like a Lannister.
That didn't even occur to me. Well, I just figured she was wearing King's Landing stuff. Like, that's the only thing that hit me. like when I was watching it, it didn't even occur to me that they were like, yeah, her hair. Like now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, the hairstyle was similar, and
she wore a lot more pinks and magentas and golds, and so then therefore, and she wasn't even then. If she was wearing when she was wearing crimson and golds, she wasn't showing that she was going to be a Baratheon. She was trying to be a Lannister,
right?
Which.
That turned out real well.
That turned out well for her. Well, but then what's so crazy? Oh my gosh! Now I'm really geeking out about this. I never even thought about
That's
this.
the entire point. Please.
She's a Lannister. I mean, she marries Tyrion, right? So she becomes a Lannister.
Yeah.
And it's
but she takes back that Stark name so hard. That makes that transition like even better.
Yep.
Like yes.
Well, it's like almost at one point to me, it almost seemed like each of the Stark children were becoming like a part of a different house, similar to in Harry Potter, how like Ron was the Hufflepuff Gryffindor, Hermione was the Ravenclaw Gryffindor, and Harry was the Slytherin Gryffindor. It almost seemed like Sansa was the Lannister Stark. Obviously, Jon was the Night's Watch Stark.
Yeah.
Like they each had like their own specific. And Rob, bless his fucking soul, was the Stark of his time.
right.
Well,
And if you ever notice, also the tunic that Ned wore was.
So brown.
Was brown, and it was this patchwork of triangle. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Anybody? Yeah.
It looked like it had like an inlay of iron throughout the entire thing.
Exactly. And John went through having one of those,
Yeah.
and now he has ditched it, and now he no longer has it.
That's
Guys, go back and
right.
watch. I'll tell you it's there.
I'm like so ready to be like, can you come to my house and watch it with me so I can have this like this good feeling of watching these costumes change? Because it's so cool. Like the needlework thing. When you were talking about that, I got chills because it gave her a point. It was such a big deal for her to be a proper woman, learn this proper needlework.
Yeah.
And Arya's like, I do my own stuff, but I didn't even think about how Sansa actually became very, very good at it and actually wore it as a true badge of honor in the end. Like this mattered, even though it didn't matter to Arya. This mattered to me, and look how I can wear it with like pride. That's so cool.
And she like her tool becoming the lady. Like that scene where she comes in Littlefinger's like looking at her I think it was like 2 seasons ago or something like that. No, but it's like she's in a I think she's in a black dress at that moment, and like it's like it was a total like paradigm shift when you first see her. It was like walking downstairs. I think like I remember that moment so vividly because that was her like totally like taking hold of like I am the Lady Stark of Winterfell, and I am going to use this.
Yeah.
I mean, just with that dark, like that dark moment though, like that dark moment, that was that click, that change in her where she, Bolton, like, did the nasty things. Yeah. But really that's like, it's very evident in our society today. So it's kind of cool, I guess, to see her come through that and like really change for a powerful mode, like take it as a power thing. And it was really cool.
Yeah. And that's, thinking back on it, I didn't even realize that until you mentioned this, that Sansa is the first one to make that shift, and it was after Bolton. And I think I would love to go back. I never thought about this, and maybe it's somewhere in my psyche right now, realizing that when she goes back to the north, her hair color also adjusts to not only the weather, but she starts to look more like her mother.
Yeah.
She gets a much darker red.
She gets a darker red.
It's rich.
It's this
Very rich red, yeah.
And it's Sansa. I used to sit there and be like, oh
no,
Sansa.
Remember when everyone hated Sansa? Remember when everyone hated Sansa
Right.
because
Deserve
she,
a wolf
yeah,
at
she,
some point. I was
she
like,
had
no wolf.
spine.
No.
She sold out her family. She got like manipulated by the Lannisters. Everyone hated Sansa.
Yeah.
And now she's kind of redeemed herself by reclaiming the
Yeah.
North and turning on Littlefinger.
God,
Oh
she
my
did
God.
so much good stuff. That she was she was probably my favorite part of the latest season.
Oh,
like
my gosh,
easily
yeah.
because of everything she was doing.
So strong. It's so cool.
I hated almost every scene she did with Arya where they were acting like they were about to like have a war between them.
That was the
Yeah.
writing, though. I do have to say that was the writing.
I think that was as well. But having grown up with a sister, every scene felt so right, even though we weren't fighting about land and our dad, that sort of situation. But I was like, no, this is what would happen with sisters.
Yeah, it's like we've both grown over time. We've all gone off and done our things, but then we get
Right.
back in the same room, and it's like we're kids again, that kind of thing.
Yes, but I mean, like, it's the reason it bothered me was because, I never once doubted that they were going to be on the same side at the end because the Starks have always been about family. Like,
Right.
I never fucking doubted that. That's why I say it's the writing. Like I was never worried.
But it's also the idea that what's frustrating for us is we saw both dark things that happened to both of them. We saw all the turmoil they went through, and we want them to say, like, open up to each other.
Right.
Tell you that
Yeah.
you both had really rough things happen. Let's talk about this. Let's embrace. Let's have a moment. But they don't have time because they gotta get shit done.
They're busy ladies
Yeah,
now.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you don't show your feelings.
No feelings in Game of Thrones. Otherwise, your head
God.
comes off.
Otherwise, you end up having sex with your aunt.
Oh, true that. And having kids with them.
on a boat.
I'm on a boat, motherfucker. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm on a boat on fucker. Don't you ever forget.
Oh God, yep. Yeah.
I want to geek out about a thing that's a little off topic. Was
Yes,
when
yes,
I
yes.
read about Michelle Kaplan. Kaplan, can we fix that? I want to get her name right.
Yeah.
Michelle Clapton is the costume designer. She, everybody, because cosplay is amazing, and it's something I wish I could make money off of. Maybe I'll start an Etsy.
I'll
right?
pay you.
You want to pay me?
I will pay you for costumes.
It's and the level of cosplay, even in the last 6 years, has grown huge, and I love it. When they were talking all about, we now have one of the most iconic film, television costumes, which is Jon Snow, right? Everybody, you do an impression of Jon Snow and you throw a blanket on, right? Because he's Jon Snow.
You go to IKEA.
And then that's what I was
you
going to
go to
say.
IKEA.
And everybody's like, oh, where'd they get this wolf fur, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, it's a rug from IKEA.
You can do it too.
You too can have a rug from IKEA and look like Jon Snow. And I love that. Like, and just the amount of work that goes into that show, the amount of work. And it's the majority of, I was reading up on it, and I love that the weaponry and the armor is made in Iceland. There's a huge HBO complex in Iceland.
Gotta
And
go.
that's where they build everything.
Okay,
In the heart of a volcano.
I want to geek about the armor in that show for a little bit. Like,
Let's do it.
Like I'm advanced acting combat, and like I do a lot of stage combat stuff. And one of the first things that stuck out to me was how they managed to make each of the different houses' armor so distinct, but so functionally in the same world. Like, it's so easy to be like, well, we're gonna make this armor like that, but they like don't look like they would like exist in the same plane of existence. But every time I see the Lannisters next to the Starks is when it strikes me, is because they all have these very distinct shoulder pauldrons, but like that's what they do. I mean, obviously the Dothraki are
They're their own.
but they're on a different continent, so that
And it's
makes
hot.
sense.
It's hot
it
where
makes
they are.
sense. But like, the armor's so pretty. But like, with Ned Stark's like leather inlay, that makes sense because they're in the north. They're gonna have lots of furs. Like, you have to polish your steel so much. The less you have it exposed, the better it's gonna be for you. So like, that's one of the things that I loved so much about
They
that
thought
show.
about the environment.
They
It's
thought
really cool.
Yes.
Right, and that's something that I absolutely love about being when I do costumes is you're so removed, right? There's a screen in front of you, or there's the fourth wall in a theater. Yeah. And until recently, what is that, like 4D, where they move your seat and they spit water on you? I've never been because I know I will get
Smells in
motion
your
sickness.
faces.
Oh, I
Exactly.
hate it so
Oh,
much.
it's weird.
I kind of like it.
It is. You like it.
Hashtag kill Josh.
Hashtag kill Josh. The best thing about being a costume designer is you get to give that sense of temperature. Nobody knows. Like, the set designer has a job. You're in the desert, so you've learned deserts are hot and snow is cold. But when you're in that middle ground of King's Landing, it's what season is it? So it's the costume designer's job to figure out winter is coming. And you'll notice this past season, King's Landing people have been putting on more layers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Because
I
it's
did
getting
notice
cold.
that.
Oh, yeah.
I did notice that.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that it's snowing yet. It's not snowing yet, but it's cold.
Yes.
It's a
I
crispness.
was going to say, I wanted to bring up that Game of Thrones and the costume design for that show seems very different to me than a lot of the, like a scripted sitcom or something like that, where the source material that George R.R. Martin wrote is so extensive and contains like immaculately detailed description of a lot of these different armor designs.
Yeah.
And so there is some kind of freedom there, but I feel like that could have been either a gift or a curse, I suppose, for the costume designers, but to have something they were trying to replicate so specifically, or to have them go, oh, dang it, I have no idea how I'm going to make that work. Or
Yeah, I remember I was in a production meeting, this was years ago, and I don't remember which show it was, usually Shakespeare, because he's not very good at telling you when. It just kind of happens. You're like, well, you could do Romeo and Juliet in the winter, I guess, if you wanted to, but
That's not when love happens.
But we do know when A Midsummer Night's Dream happens.
right,
In the dead of winter. And we also know when A Winter's Tale starts.
right. Those are the only two that you. And so it's so funny as like a costume designer. Sometimes I have to say, well, when? Or if you're in Maine in the summer, it's going to be different than Maine in, July.
Yeah.
So. And
Yeah.
that's your job
Yeah.
to convey. And you're right about sitcoms. I always love this about sitcoms. Everybody never has a light jacket on, but the Christmas episode, they're all bundled up. It's like
yeah.
the funniest thing to me.
There's no fall.
There is no
There's no fall.
fall.
There's no fall. Maybe a nice spring, but
It's
and
true.
they put a raincoat on.
Because,
I
yeah.
never saw Chandler in a windbreaker. That's true.
Never.
I wanted to see him.
I
in
mean,
Windbreaker.
How I Met Your Mother was okay about it. That's like the only like sitcom kind of show that I ever religiously watched. But like again, it was always like light jacket, bundled up,
Right.
light jacket.
Yeah.
Not to. I'm so sorry. How I Met Your Mother costume designer. We are not judging you.
They changed their costume designer. I think after the fourth or fifth season because people didn't like the costume designing that was happening, and it actually got better season 6, 7, and 8.
Because it matters.
Like if you
what
watch,
you wear matters.
there is a distinct difference between like season 4 and season 6. Like go ahead and watch it because like the costume designer who they took over did a much better job of encompassing the characters.
That's a good point. I never thought about and it would be I always was now thinking about it bothered by the fact that we never saw a costume arc in Marshall on that show. Like it was like he was dressing like a college kid and then the next thing you know he was just thrown into suits all the time. And I get it because he's coming from work and he has to wear a suit, he's a lawyer now. But I also feel like he would have a nice cardigan at this point. Like
He would try. I could also see his wife dressing him, like
Yeah,
having those
she
moments, and she definitely did not get to do that.
Oh, that's such a good point. Lily has a serious credit card problem. So, like, why is Marshall still in the same pants he wore freshman year of college?
She would totally have an impact on him. Most wives have something to say.
Exactly. Come on.
Yeah, but that was a part of his boyish charm. Was that he?
We can grow up. We can grow up and get some nice fitting
We can.
slacks.
We can. That's what Ted did. That was actually one of the interesting ones. Is like over time, you saw him go from like basically what I'm wearing right now, which is nerd shirt, kind of apparently pearl button. Did I say
Pearl
that right?
snaps.
Yeah,
Pearl
that's right.
snaps.
Pearl snaps.
You learned
Apparently,
that today.
I
I
guess.
learned that today. I don't know what. Apparently, I'm wearing. Pearl
You have a
snaps.
nice, your shirt has a nice yoke to it at
Yeah,
the top.
Apparently, I'm wearing some nice dark jeans. Like Ted wore that kind of stuff at first, but as he grew older, and then when he became a professor, he started to wear professor-like outfits. He started to wear more like slacks and button-ups. It was an interesting transition for him.
And like sweater and tie combo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Whereas Barney Stinson, I mean, as per his character, was always in suits. I would be interested.
Very well fitted suits.
Always very
Perfect.
well fitted
Good
suit, that
bet.
kind of thing.
Tim Gunn.
Oh, Tim Gunn.
Tim Gunn.
He was in a.
Yeah, he was the in-universe tailor for Barney Stinson.
He was, yeah.
brilliant. It was such a
great.
brilliant moment.
It really was. Sorry, I kind of hijacked it over to How I Met Your Mother for a little bit. But.
No.
We can geek out about How I Met Your Mother. I love it.
Well, I know when we were talking before, you mentioned that you also kind of had a thing about Harry Potter costuming and stuff like that, or was I extrapolating incorrectly?
Oh, no. I mean, that's one of my favorite Tumblr memes, whatever somebody created of just the Warner Brothers symbol changing, from the first one to the second one. Because we obviously went from a very, sorry, Warner Brothers, but Disney,
Feel.
We definitely did.
we had Chris Columbus, right? And then just the darkness that happened. But what I always give credit to Harry Potter, as far as costumes go, is when they are in, I guess you could call them civilians, I guess. I mean, with the lack of a
clothes.
In their
they're
muggle outfit.
muggle clothes. That's
Right,
they're
right.
the muggle garb, if you will.
Trying to blend in.
We never really had a set time. Everything was very realistic to what the UK style is, what the Scottish style is. Big sweaters, corduroys, good jeans, that sort of, There was no Well, it's 2012, so Hermione's going to be wearing this. Like, there's no set. If you go back and you rewatch that in their Muggle garb,
Yeah.
it can kind of take place almost at any point. And there's always been this weird, warm 1950s, 1960s feel to their sweaters and what they're wearing. Because as we know with the book, Battle of Hogwarts ended in 96?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Weird.
I know, it's weird to think about that. It technically took place in the 90s.
Totally weird.
It took place in the 90s.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so if it really took place in the 90s and they wanted to do that, it'd be a whole different costume design.
In Sorcerer's Stone, they did have that like weird 90s vibe, like that Harry Potter was wearing, like I think he had an awful plaid unbuttoned down shirt for a little while and he was always schlubby. And they like showed that well, but like as they got further, I will agree, it almost like they had this like this American Apparel thing going where it could be anything. They were all blank slates and at any time, and that was pretty cool that they made that work that way.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I also appreciate that for its lack of product placement. Like no one ever zoomed out
totally.
and be like, "Oh, Harry Potter wears Chuck Taylors."
He did though. He did wear Chuck Taylors.
No, he did.
Yeah, he did.
No, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Prisoner of Azkaban. Watch him running through that little like pumpkin field.
And
Oh my God! I just pulled that example out of nowhere.
wow, that's really
too.
funny.
Ooh, subliminal messaging.
But see, in my mind, that it encompasses what the wizards are so much. Like they can't keep, the wizards aren't going to try to keep up with the fucking trends of the Muggle world.
no, but they're keeping up with the trends of the wizard world.
Yes, but they do want to make sure that they understand the Muggle outfits just enough so that they can be timeless, like you were saying. I think
Right.
it's a really smart choice to make it like
You gotta make things timeless. 'Cause you want your babies to watch it. I want my babies to watch that.
yeah.
Exactly. Well, there's, I guess, when Arthur comes to meet Harry, J.K. gives a very description of what he's wearing, which is this hodgepodge of Muggle
Oh
clothes.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't get it.
Because he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And he, at one point, isn't he like in sleeping pants or something like that? Which it's, I think. Maybe we should.
Because he thinks he likes the nerd kingdom of like the weird outside Muggle world.
Exactly, he does.
He's Ace Ventura.
Right. He's like the kind of guy that would wear sleeping pants and a leather jacket,
A Hawaiian shirt.
and a Hawaiian shirt, and just look like he lives in Williamsburg. But like,
God.
you know,
yeah.
He
yeah.
totally lives in Williamsburg.
Dude, I love Arthur. Arthur's one of my favorite characters because of his obsession with Muggles. That's so funny to me.
right? It's
I mean, really quickly on that, it's kind of like how we have an obsession with like wizards and witches and
Oh,
that kind of thing.
totally.
He's just got an obsession with Muggles.
yeah. If he could go to MuggleCon, he would go to MuggleCon. He would speak at MuggleCon.
Is that a thing? Is MuggleCon a thing?
No, but we should do. I don't know if it's a thing, but we should maybe do
That
it.
would be so
I am
funny.
so
to
on
have
board.
a
I'd be
MuggleCon.
shocked if it was a thing, but yeah, that can be done.
Yeah, Arthur
Why-
Weasley,
oh my
the
God.
keynote speaker.
Oh God, yes.
MuggleCon.
Yes.
Yeah, I also loved Fantastic Beasts because of that. Are we allowed to talk about Fantastic Beasts? Because I'm Hufflepuff, so I love Fantastic Beasts.
It's
of
fine.
course.
I haven't
It's
seen
great.
it, but it's totally fine to talk
It made
about.
my brother actually care about Harry Potter because Harry Potter wasn't in it. Thank God.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh,
Spoilers.
yeah, they didn't try to. They didn't try to shoehorn a Harry Potter subplot in. Like they.
Wait, I thought it was a prequel.
Yeah, exactly. But a
was,
lesser movie would have been like, and that's why the Potters moved from America back to England, where Voldemort killed them 100 years later.
So it wouldn't be like trying to put in a weird Eye of Sauron in The Hobbit, just for instance, randomly
Yes,
for no reason.
something
I don't know.
exactly
just
like that.
pull an
That's
example off
crazy.
the top of my head or something like that. I don't know.
Totally crazy.
Totally crazy idea.
Crazy.
And what I loved about that was you had to see what 1920s wizards wore.
They were
Like
cool. They were so cool.
they were so cool. Just like we look back on the 1920s, and I'm like, I love the 1920s. It's
yeah.
such a good era.
I wonder if
you know,
the
all that
British
art-
wizards dressed that cool in the 1920s.
Probably not.
Oh yeah, good point.
Sorry, British wizards.
They've had plenty of
American
time.
Wizards way better.
Yeah, like they were able to do. It was like wizard garb, Art Deco.
It was so beautiful.
It was
though.
beautiful.
I wanted those dresses. They were selling them for a while, and they sold out like wow, like that beautiful pink one they had. There was a gold and black one that I want now. I want it. I would just have like these cool like I'm trying to like make like little diamond signs. They had like diamonds down the front in a
Yeah.
weird way. It was just beautiful, I loved
Gorgeous.
them.
Yeah, and even Colin Farrell's suit was fantastic. My goodness, that suit.
Everybody looked excellent.
Yes, because he had to have that like, I'm in the Muggle world, but I'm also a wizard in the 19. It was just probably my favorite costume out of that entire film.
I think
was
Newt was
his.
pretty cool. I'm on board for Newt's Commander's like little like it
It's
suited his personality so
Yeah.
well. He was very Doctor Who-ish, I would almost say.
I want to
That's
find
kinda
out
cool with
if
that.
that
I can see that.
if that's really Eddie Redmayne's like shoe size, or did they go up like 2
Goofier?
sizes to make him look goofy-ish? Yeah.
That's actually a wonderfully great question. I never even thought about somebody's shoe size making them goofier. And then I was like, I guess that's totally true. You're such a costume designer. Jeez.
I don't even look at shoes.
Well, actually, this is actually a great stopping point because we are at about half an hour. So we've been talking for half an hour
Already?
about this.
Jeez.
Yeah, it goes
Yay.
by so fast,
It
but
does.
that's totally fine because now we have about 10 minutes for our next segment. I guess you could say plus 10 XP. We are going to take about 10 minutes now. This is you've had your chance to geek out, Chrissy.
Okay.
This is when we get to talk to you about things that we have questions about for costuming and stuff like that.
Tim Gunn. I'm
Tim-
just going to steal this right now. Is Tim Gunn the angel that I assume he is? Can you give me a little feedback on Tim Gunn?
Yes.
Oh, God, thank you.
Yes.
I needed some right in the world.
There is this wonderful like humbleness about him, actually. In the brief interactions I've ever had with him.
Did you touch him?
No, I'm not going to touch that.
I feel like his hugs would be so nice. I want him to be the godfather of my child. I just trust him to read stories to them and making it work.
And I think what's great is he became our Tim Gunn so late in his life that he is still his own Tim Gunn,
Yeah.
That's who he truly is.
Nothing took him over. He's just that nice guy that literally makes it work for everyone. He had hope in everyone in Project
Right.
Runway, and I loved it.
Because remember, at the end of the day, he's a teacher.
Yeah.
He's a teacher. That's
you
what he
could
did
see
for
that.
years. He taught,
He cares. It's so nice to
does.
see somebody that genuinely cared about everyone in the competition. He really cared. He
Right.
teared up a lot.
He did. And he loved to watch them, go through their arc and all of that.
And grow. Yeah.
It's funny that we're saying that because like the Great British Baking Show, that's commonplace. Like in American television, it's fucking weird when
Yeah, it's
it's
kind.
hold on, you want me to care about the contestants? No, I'm gonna make fun of them when they suck.
Right?
So happy to hear that he actually is that wonderful. I'm really happy about it. Not over it yet.
So I have a question I've
Sure.
actually wanted to ask you. It's very, very specific. Has there ever been a point in a movie or a Broadway show that you saw where you thought that the costume designer like legitimately just missed a mark based on character?
all the time.
So like, what is a good example of
Dish it
like
out.
Throw some shade.
for like
Yeah.
literal? Well, I mean, without calling people out, I guess. What like as a stupid clothing person as I am, because I don't even know what a pearl.
Dude,
snap.
your Boba Fett shirt is sweet.
Thank you. I like my Boba Fett
Right.
shirt. Pearl snaps. Explain it so I would understand.
Here's the situation. We as designers, and I can't speak for my fellow other aspects of design, set that sort of thing. As costume designers, we should not have to give the excuse of I don't know what they wore, because our greatest ally in design is we have hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years of paintings. And if you want to know what Queen Elizabeth looked like, there's about hundreds of paintings of Queen Elizabeth. Mm-mm. So when you stray away from, and there's some people that get really in depth, they're like, but in 1967 it changed to this, and you're like, okay, got it. Yeah, you're right. But it's tough when you do sit there and you're like, they would never wear that. They would never. And a lot of times it is television and films back in like the 70s and the 80s that were trying to depict other eras. There's still, like when you go back and you watch even a BBC production of, I don't know, like The Cherry Orchard, but they still have like a 1980s blowout. Like
Yeah,
that's
no,
the
yeah.
funny thing to me when you look back and you're like, but that's now.
Doesn't work. Or when they did like Greek stuff, and you're just like, that's not how togas work.
Right, exactly. That's
Or,
not
like,
a toga.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm thinking from the 40s, but like it was like bullet bras and like ancient Rome, that kind of
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
like, no, that's not it. And it's fun because people, they want to be able to. You want to be able to stay true to the era as
Right.
well, because it's history. Like you're putting history on
important.
film, or Also, the biggest thing, actually, more than they got it wrong, is I have a problem when I'm looking at things and I'm like, well, that's impractical. Like, Dani wears pants. Of course she wears pants. We're going back to Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
She rides horses and she rides dragons. She has to have leather pants on.
Yeah.
Like,
Those dragons don't feel good between
right,
your legs.
that
I'm
costume
assuming.
designer would have her in like cute little dresses, and she's trying to get on this dragon.
Right.
You know.
Well, I guess another part of it is, I mean, like character-wise, we're talking about we've talked about the evolution of characters and that kind of thing. Like the soul of what I was asking was like, was there like a character that ever walked on screen? And once you got to them, I'm like, why are they fucking wearing that?
Oh, off the top of my head.
Like, if you can't think of anything, it's fine. I just know I was wondering if there was anything that ever
This is a
stuck out
fun
to
one.
you.
I'm curious.
Yeah. My question is going to seem really superficial when we get to it.
Oh, I'm so excited. The biggest issue I had was, remember in Knight's Tale?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Knight's Tale so much, though. Go.
Total missed opportunity. Total missed opportunity. Because you had this wonderful soundtrack that was underplaying that whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh, so fun.
This was Heath Ledger too.
This was
right?
Heath
It was
Ledger.
Ulrich von Lichtenstein.
Yes.
Yeah, it was this oddly contemporary music soundtrack going.
Which is
Right.
cool. Which was totally
And
cool.
As much as I did not enjoy Marie Antoinette, they knew what they were doing and they did it. That was the Kirsten Dunst. Remember that
Yeah.
Kirsten
Right.
Dunst
Yeah.
one? You know, the powdered wigs, that sort of thing, and Converse, which was great. But A Knight's Tale, it was actually more frustrating to be like, you missed the mark. You had such a beautiful opportunity here.
And you didn't do it.
And you didn't do it. You
I can
didn't
agree
do
with
it.
that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's interesting to me. Yeah, I just because with all of the stuff that's been going on, especially with recent big blockbusters, I just recently saw Black Panther, and it was amazing. I don't know if you guys have seen it at the time of
I am
recording.
not, but I am seeing it on Sunday and can't wait.
Me too.
It's I would be interested because I looked up some of the stuff about the costume designer because it's just breathtakingly gorgeous.
Yeah.
Every aspect of it. So because every time I see something that's so good, there's always in the back of my mind like, is there ever been a point where like even in a big blockbuster? So I guess Knight's Tale is an example of like the character would not wear that.
He would not wear that. You know what the number one example of that is that always bothered me, and they finally, and back me up on this, Bill Murray, they finally got it right with Black Widow. All of the superhero girls in high heels. Absolutely
So
not.
stupid.
So dumb.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Do you remember those like wedges that Batgirl had, Alicia Silverstone? Well, that whole
Pointless.
thing.
You
But
can't run around in them. I don't care what they said in Jurassic World. That's stupid. It's a jungle. She would have been in the dirt, like literally poking holes in the dirt. So
Yep.
mad. Makes me so
yeah.
mad.
so mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mad.
I also
And
feel-
they got kind of taken to task over
Oh,
that. I
they
remember
did.
that.
That-
Oh, they did.
Her adjustment of, I'm not hair and makeup, but that hair going from being perfectly coiffed to like a blowout frizz mess by the end, though.
Nicely done.
Winning. Winning Jurassic World.
Nicely
winning.
done.
I was like, yes.
Yeah, taking guns.
All right.
shooting
Yeah,
stuff.
it isn't. It's interesting that he just brought up like high heels and superheroes because like it was such a convention for so long, especially in the actual drawn comics that's what it
Right.
was. And it's like practically no, of course you wouldn't.
It makes your legs
Do
look
it.
good, but your legs
But
don't need to
if
look
you're-
good when you're kicking
I was
ass.
gonna say if you're
Yeah.
fighting
Exactly.
crime, also if you're fighting crime, your legs are gonna look good no matter what because you're fucking muscle bound.
That is true.
Right.
That.
And here's the thing. I completely understand what they did with Wonder Woman with the fact that she was wearing the armor that she grew up around, as you know. But I'm going to be interested to see if Wonder Woman in Wonder Woman 2, if they're going to give her pants
Wait,
underneath that skirt.
Did Wonder Woman have heels on? Did I miss something? Or-
No, I'm talking about her skirt.
Oh, the skirt.
Her
yeah.
outfit.
She had
She had like
That short piece.
Yeah, but her shoes did have like some elevation in the back. I think.
I mean,
they were
you
like,
always want a
it was
nice little,
I was gonna say.
like you want a nice boot heel.
But
like,
I mean, like
you
even,
know.
make 'em cozy.
even my running shoes like have extra cushion on the heel, so like it's not abnormal to have a little bit of rise in the back.
Right. Well, you know, you want a little heel on a boot, you know.
Otherwise, it looks a little weird.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, I mean, actually, apparently, the difference in costume design from Wonder Woman to was it Justice League that had the
yeah.
Amazons in it again, and the costume design was like completely
Oh,
different.
they got ripped
People
for
are
that. I was
mad.
mad about it.
Well, I mean,
Mad
you take all
about
their
it.
clothes away when you just like, hey, remember the costumes? Let's just take away the
Remember the
costumes.
the amazing like practical armor costumes. I read
Yeah.
And also just the amazing choreographed scenes of them training in the
Yes.
beginning of the film.
so
Yeah,
good.
and you're taught, and there is such a fine line as a costume designer between sexy and trashy, and it's actually the removal of clothes, clothing, and like where are you going to cut things, and that's sort of
You can be sexy and completely covered.
heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck
Well, actually, really quickly on armor again, because as I'm a big armor. The Ant-Man Wasp movie hasn't come out yet. I don't know if it's going to be out by the time this premieres. But the Ant-Man Wasp got a lot of flack because of Wasp's armor. Now, when you look at the design of Ant-Man's armor versus Wasp's armor, the face of an ant and a face of a wasp are on them. It's actually pretty cool when you look at that. However, when you also look at Wasp's armor, it's not flat on the front. It's boob shaped for the front of her armor. And any swords person will tell you if the sword is going to get deflected down towards the center, that does not help your situation.
No.
So the armor is it becomes completely impractical armor because you're like boob shaped because she's girl.
I will say at least like Xena, she did have the boob shape thing, but she kept like a little dagger right in the center that helped protect her. So like there are some boob shapes that worked for me.
I'm not.
Xena's boob shape worked for you.
Yes, it did.
I mean, but that's why like Musketeer. I guess quick tangent. You're the expert, so either back me up or completely tear me down. Musketeer armor is wedged out so that it's protruding in the middle because that way it would deflect away from the body and it was actually more protective. And that's why it stopped bullets legitimately because of the way it was shaped.
Right.
So when you have boobs pushing stuff in, it actually no.
If I was to go into battle as a woman, I would not want.
I love the beginning
push-up.
of that sentence.
I would not. Well, I'm a Hufflepuff, so at the end of the day,
she's going to go into battle if she's got friends that are in danger.
That's the only. I had a. This is a side tangent, and you can do what you want with this information. But
Please.
I was. This was a couple years ago. We were doing Pottermore at my old job, and my Pottermore. I'm like a Hufflepuff, of course, and I'm a red squirrel Patronus, and my wand is 10.5 inches and willow, and my coworker, he came over and he looked down at my Pottermore landing page, and he went, that's the lamest Pottermore I have ever seen.
Oh, no.
And he goes, how are you supposed to fight anybody? And I went, I don't want to fight anybody. like I don't.
Squirrels are feisty. Squirrels are totally feisty.
Yeah. And it's a tiny Patronus. And yeah, I love it.
But it's still Patronus is still powerful, so that little squirrel
true.
is going to
That's
kick
true.
And
ass.
probably fast.
And my dog, I'm a dog Patronus, so my dog would chase your squirrel Patronus, and damn, would it be cute.
The cutest thing in the world.
So we're close to time.
So
Josh,
sorry.
Josh,
So
no. Do
love it.
not apologize. Josh, you had a thing.
All right, no, it's okay. It might not be the strongest question to finish on, but I had a question about Broadway, about Broadway costuming and things like that.
Oh no, I actually like this question. You told me what it was. It's a good way to end, in my opinion.
So I always kind of had this idea of costume designers and the people who assemble these costumes as basically like miracle workers who have this trove of old costumes from previous shows and they're told to construct new ones with it. And that's a lot of it. But I got a unofficial backstage tour at Wicked one time, and I saw Elphaba's like second act dress, and they told me the price tag on it.
Yeah.
And it was like some hundreds of thousands. It was over $100,000 for this one outfit that she wore in one scene. I was wondering, like, how often does that happen for a Broadway show?
It depends. I would say, I do know this. So there is nothing a costume designer would want more than to be contracted by Disney, right? Because you're just going to get thrown money. They're just going to throw you money. Aladdin has all Swarovski crystals. The whole thing is done and it glitters. The whole stage.
I saw it. It's
I did not.
beautiful.
visually stunning.
And there is even day workers, specifically at Wicked. There are people, because there's day workers before, for a Broadway show that come in and they do the laundry and they do the presets. But there is a couple of team members, I don't know how many, but their specific day work some days is just beading, and that's on a lot of Broadway shows where they have to come in and do fix-its of the beading on Glinda's dress.
Yeah.
Just thinking about
Beating
that. What
with
a job.
D, not a D.
With a D, beading. And it's the same thing with Aladdin. And so what you're paying, what the cost of that dress is because so many costumes in movies and on really the Broadway stage, because you're that close, they're what's considered couture. It's couture work. And so that means that it's all hand done. And so it's hand done applique and it's hand done cutting and there's nothing factory about it. So the price tag is actually about the workmanship that also goes into it.
It's a lot
but
of the
also
labor.
the fabric. Like fabric's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why my favorite thing in the world is Cinderella's dress, right? In this new Cinderella.
Right.
Okay.
That was the biggest task a costume designer had because it's one of the most iconic dresses in history.
Yeah.
I don't know the price tag on it. We should maybe but it's
can.
look it up. It'll pop up. Beautiful. And I think they had to make 2 of them, and the way they made the illusion of her waist, because people were upset at her waist. They were like, they cinched her so much, they cinched her. No, her skirt is so big, it's an optical illusion.
Oh.
That's why her waist is so small. But did you look it up? Did you find
No,
it?
I haven't found it yet, but I was lighting up about the optical illusion thing. That's so cool.
They're like, oh my
I didn't
gosh,
realize
they
that.
got her below Scarlett O'Hara. Scarlett O'Hara's waist, of course, was cinched, and they got her down to 22, some ridiculous amount.
Are you talking about For Gone with the Wind?
For Gone with the
God,
Wind.
Yeah, it was tiny.
Right,
Tiny,
but when
tiny.
you have a skirt that big, your waist is going to look smaller.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I use that trick. Sometimes.
It's a great trick. You put a nice big skirt on, and then you got a great waist. Did you find it yet?
I'm not finding anything specific for it.
Yeah, I'm not finding a price tag. I'm getting photos. I'm getting like.
Actually, I
right.
just found something that might be. I don't know. This is in pounds, so it wouldn't be for Broadway. Never mind. But this one says
West
11,000
End
pounds per
counts?
dress, but I don't know if that's accurate.
11,000 pounds for
Per dress is what it's saying. I
for
don't know.
that sounds about right for Cinderella's dress.
Yes. But actually, really quickly, fun name drop fact before we close everything out. I actually know the girl who's touring as Cinderella right now, Tatiana. She's wonderful. I actually am probably going to end up reaching out to her because she's just a wonderful, wonderful person. We went to the same college. And I really want to geek out with her about Pokemon because that's something that's going to be exciting. Anyway, we
shame.
are unfortunately out of time. We're at a 45-minute mark.
No.
This.
I still had to talk about comedy and costuming.
God, you know what? I am more than happy to have you back on because this was absolutely wonderful.
joy.
Comedy
was
and
great.
costuming.
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much, and Pearl Snap,
Pearl snaps. Great
more
yoke.
than just
Great
Pearl
yoke.
all kinds of stuff. So thank you so much again for coming on the show,
it's
Chrissie.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
this
You're
was
all
a
so
lot of fun.
delightful.
You're so cool.
No, you're cool.
Yeah. So anyway, to wrap everything up again, I am Peter the Geek.
I am #KillJosh.
I'm Bill Murray.
I'm pretty sure I leveled up today. I don't know about you guys, but enjoy, and we'll see you at the next level.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to our show. If you liked Geek XP, help us out by becoming a contributor on our Patreon. We have bonus content, raffles, and more at patreon.com/yourgeekxp. Geek XP is recorded live at Face Off Unlimited headquarters in Astoria, Queens, and was edited by Peter Hargard. Executive producers are Joe Tex, Jay Painter, and Eric Robinson. FOU Studios is a property of Face Off Unlimited, LLC. I'm Peter Hargarden, the senior producer of podcasts here, and on behalf of everyone who worked on the show, we'd like to thank you, the listener, for tuning in. Subscribe to catch all of our other podcasts here on the FOU Studios Podcast Network. To connect with the geeks, follow us at YourGeekXP on Facebook and Twitter. To learn more about FOU, connect with us via social media at FOU Studios and visit us at FOUstudios.com. Boom!